On the steering committee of the Prop I, the Media Messaging Committee. Christine has to do a stuff for her.
Okay, great. And on the con, we have Armin Dovlewski. Now, I gather that the spelling honest, they gave me the wrong spelling. I didn't do it. Am I also butchering the pronunciation?
You're pretty good.
All right. Schools, they do names all the time. And he is co-chair of the Progress Democratic Club. And I did send you this, but it may not be fresh in your mind. I don't know if you were here in the beginning. The format is 5 minutes pro, 5 minutes con, about 15 minutes of discussion. I'll call on people for questions, 2 minutes each side if you want them, no matter who it's addressed to, the other person may also speak to it. And then in conclusion, 3 for the pro and 3 for the con. All right, this is your timekeeper. She rules. We expect no back talk. And on the yes side, Prop I.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Carlos Oliveri. I'm here representing yes on Prop I. So, what is Proposition I? It is a pause for a plan. It is a 18-month pause on luxury market rate housing exclusively in the Mission District from basically the freeway to Potrero to Cesar Chavez to Guerrero. 18 months where it can be added on another 12 months by the Board of Supervisors. And the goal is to create a neighborhood stabilization plan by a hard date, January of 2017, in order to guarantee 50% affordable housing in the future in the Mission. I think that probably everybody knows that the Mission District is ground zero for the housing crisis in San Francisco and for gentrification. Those who have lived here for a long time have seen a tremendous amount of changes. So the precursor to Prop I was, as many of you probably know, a initiative that went into the Board of Supervisors, sponsored by our local supervisor, David Campos. That one was for a 45-day moratorium, and it got 7 out of the 9 required votes it needed, but failed. So basically what happened after that is the Mission community decided that they really needed to push something forward for the ballot for this election cycle. In 20 days, the Mission community got the 15,100 signatures necessary to get the proposition on the ballot. That's something that hasn't happened in the Mission District in a very long time. There was an outpouring of community support. The Mission is very united around this proposition, and that says something, and that has made the politicians basically pay notice. Against us is the usual cast of characters. That would be the San Francisco realtors, and with their big money from basically all of the realtors in the nation. The developers, spearheaded by San Francisco Housing Action Coalition, Tim Cullen. I had the pleasure of debating him recently. The DCCC, now chaired by a San Francisco realtor, and basically the democratic power structure of the city of San Francisco. On our side is the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, which is all the neighborhood groups throughout San Francisco, and the individual neighborhood groups. The Labor Council, all basically of the Tenants' Rights Organization, pretty much all of the nonprofits in the Mission, and very heavily on our side are artists, because they too are being displaced. It's not just the Latinos that are being displaced in the Mission District. So, just a few numbers, I'll throw these out. 10,000 Mission residents have been lost in the last 10 years between the 2011 and the follow-on census. 8,000 of them were Latinos. 75% people at an income level of 75,000 and below are retreating very quickly from the Mission District. Artists are in major crisis. The studio space, the performance space, etc. in the Mission District is rapidly being lost. We have a campaign right now through the Cultural Action Network and a bunch of other folks. I'm a member of the Cultural Action Network as well, to try to preserve what we're calling the Beast on Bryant, which is a full block of PDR and artist space that has been bought up by a developer, Nick Fidel, in order to turn it into more luxury market rate housing. The same thing is happening on 16th and Mission. That whole corner there, the attempt is to turn it into luxury market rate housing, over 300 units, etc. So those are some of the numbers, and I'm just going to pause it there. But I think that the value argument is very, very important to make in San Francisco. We in San Francisco have had a tradition of welcoming both economic and social diversity. And what's happening in the Mission District is that diversity is being rapidly lost. What we have now is we have a monochromatic demographic moving in at a very high income level that pushes out the working class that has lived in the Mission, since it was founded in the 1910s and 20s. So I'm going to stop it right there because it looks like I'm just about out of time. 8 seconds. Well, I'll let my my adversary take over.
I would say personally disagree. You ready? Hi, my name is Armand Danilewski. I am so honored to be here tonight, especially to speak in front of progressive Democrats in America who fought for things like the ERA, three-state strategy, who were supporting Bernie Sanders, go Bernie, feel the Bernie is amazing. If you had told my parents who fled from communism in the 1980s to this country that their son would be speaking in front of this club on these issues, well, I wouldn't believe them, but they would believe it because they believe in the promise of this city, this state, and this country. And because I believe in that promise, I am strongly against Proposition I. What David doesn't tell you is that this proposition will create more displacement, will create more evictions, it will create zero affordable housing.
Not so.
We can. Yeah. So the first argument I want to talk about is displacement. According to the San Francisco Planning Department, 1,495 units of housing will not be built in this city. And that includes several hundred affordable units if you don't pass the moratorium. He said 50% affordable. That's his goal. That's his plan. That is not what the moratorium does. The second thing I want to talk about is what actually causes gentrification, what causes rents to go up. The city has had an increase of 100,000 jobs since 2010, but it's only built 8,000 units of housing. When you have an immovable economic force moving towards a fixed amount of housing, that rent will go up, and that displacement will go up. Every one of us here who's tried to rent in the city has been to a showing for a unit that's not that great, that costs way too much, that 30 people show up, 3 of them with cash and envelopes in hand, and 5 of them with biographies of themselves. It is insane, and we all know that. The second thing I want to talk about is funding. The number one source of funding for affordable housing in this city is market rate housing. It is larger than state funding, it is larger than federal funding, and when you shut down the market rate housing in the Mission, you shut down funding for affordable housing. They call this a 2-year pause. This is a 2-year eviction from so many people in the city because by their own accord, they will not be able to achieve a funding source for affordable housing for 2 years. People don't have that time to wait, especially since this crisis has been happening for 30 years. Anyone who's lived in the city for a long time knows it's been unaffordable for a tremendous period of time. It's not just started. The supervisor who proposed this, Supervisor Campos, has been in office for 6 years. Why does he need 2 more years to create a plan? Finally, let's talk about the issue of rents. So the Mission built 65 units in 2014. And if you take the total housing stock for the entire Mission, that's a 0.026% increase in rent. In units. So despite that, rents increased by 20%. What does that mean? It means that the lack of building, the lack of construction is what's causing rents to go up. Specifically, let's talk about Chief Economist Ted Egan, who recently released a report. He specifically found a couple of things. First is that when you build market rate housing, the housing values around it actually go down. Because those people have to compete. You're a landowner, you can't have people building housing around you because you can get less rent. Right? It's basic economics, right? But the second thing I want to talk about is like the actual evidence, right? Because we can talk about theory all day. Washington, D.C. in 2014 increased housing stock by 5%. Rents actually went down for the first time in 30 years. Chicago did the same in 2014. Rents went down about 0.5%. This is not just theory. It's happening in San Francisco. For example, what we saw was that Teddy, so he's going to make this argument that building market rate housing causes rents to go up. He's going to say that, he said that before, but it's not true. In fact, what we found is Teddy, again, chief economist again, he surveyed people who came here to San Francisco, who made a lot of money, asked them why they came here. The number one answer was jobs. What was the second thing? They found that 97% of high-income earners, neither of us are high-income earners. I'm guessing one of the few people here are always like my friend who's was but I don't make a lot of money. But those people moved into existing units. They didn't move into new market regions. They weren't attracted by new market regions. They can get absorbed by those. So if you want to find funding for affordable housing, if you want to find ways to absorb those folks, if you want to make the city affordable for everybody, and not just the people who've lived here for a long time, but to be inclusive, to be welcoming to artists. If you want to fulfill the dream of San Francisco that my dad had when he fled from totalitarianism, that I had when I moved here, that I have when I worked for a nonprofit and live in a rent-controlled unit, you need to vote against the moratorium, because this is our chance to make a new San Francisco, to build more housing for everyone. Because we can't preserve this artificial past San Francisco, but we can build one where everyone can be free, that is inclusive for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions? Isaac.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentations. So I would like to just ask a basic definitional question. What is the definition of affordable and what is the definition of market rate?
Okay. The definition of affordable in Proposition I is 120% of AMI. That's an area median income. So that for a family of four would be an income of $122,300. So this is not a deeply affordable tranche of affordability. There are various different tranches of affordability, from deeply affordable to even 150% of AMI. So we're at 120% of AMI, family of four, $122,300 a year.
So definition, that's our affordable housing definition according to the federal government that they allow. I will say that somebody who has worked in affordable housing, I used to be an economic analyst in San Francisco, because land is so expensive. It costs about $600,000 to $800,000 to build a unit of housing. No developer will do that if they can't, but will not fund affordable housing unless they can get market rate housing to support it. Market rate housing just means housing that's determined by the market. So if you put it out there and say, okay, whatever you want, whatever you can, that's market rate. So anything that does not meet the specific legal definition of affordable housing, student housing, stuff that's 95% affordable actually, wouldn't qualify for the moratorium or get kicked out.
No, 20% of AMI. That's
20% of AMI, but if a project is 95% of those units in that project are affordable, it doesn't qualify. If it's 99% of those units in that project are affordable, it doesn't qualify.
Yeah, that's actually correct. And there's a good reason for that. The reason for that is because basically what we have seen in San Francisco very, very clearly is that when the citizens get engaged and pass these kinds of moratoriums, like for instance Prop B, what happens is that a huge project like Pier 70 somehow magically goes up to 40% affordable. And a gigantic project like the Giants Mission Rock, also with some pushback from Supervisor Kim, goes up to 40% affordable. We're all for developers, basically sharing the burden of the cost of affordable housing. And what we believe very strongly is that once Prop I, let me finish, once Prop I passes.
Okay, we're actually both over. So if you want to add a little something, we'll get to another question.
It's really interesting actually, because you referred to the Giants project. The only reason the Giants project is able to subsidize 40% affordable is because they have a ton of offices. And offices build a lot of rents and they make a lot of money, and you can cross-subsidize, right? I keep saying basic economics. I don't want to say that. It's a lot more complicated than that. But I used to work in affordable housing. I looked at those performance every single day. Sometimes the math works, sometimes it doesn't. What I tell you is the moratorium says 99.98%, still not good enough. You can make 40% affordable work sometimes. Let's do that, not pass the moratorium.
Hi, I'm not really like great at math, but I'm living on an XI income is like $10,000 a year, which is, and some of these things that say affordable housing is like 22,000. So I could never live there, and I'm in a Section 8 apartment, and my landlord last year raised my rent 1.9%, so that was like $235. This year he's done it again, and now that's $459 increase. And it's like, I'm already priced out. I don't have any money to spend on anything else but the stupid rent, you know? I feel like burning the place down, you know? It's like, I'm already priced out and I'm gonna be homeless anyway, so what the hell? I mean, what exists for people like me?
So here's the way I would say, first of all, I want to say I'm really sorry. That's awful. I pay 80% of my income or so in rent. It's like really hard to stay in the city.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I just want to say that I'm really, really sorry. I pay about 80% of my own income in rent. I'm trying, my voice is dying. Here's what I want to say. Under the moratorium, no affordable housing units get built whatsoever, right? So people like you will get displaced if we don't build the housing.
My opponent here wants to.
Let me finish.
Wait,
Okay.
Sorry.
you've had plenty of time.
Yeah. My opponent here wants to disregard the fact that Choo-Choo, which is the umbrella group of all the affordable housing developers in San Francisco, is very strongly behind Proposition I for very good reasons. It's because the goal is not to stop affordable housing. The goal is to build more affordable housing. What we're lacking in the Mission District is affordability. We have built as a city 200% of the regional housing needs assessment for market rate luxury housing. We have built about 58% of the deeply affordable and a much lower percentage of the middle class affordable. So our goal is not to stop affordable housing. To make that claim is actually frankly absurd, but they'll make it anyway. We want to, we greenlight 100% affordable for the period of the moratorium, and our goal is to have 50% affordable in the Mission, and that's an achievable goal based on the fact that, as I said, Pier 70 went up to 40, and Mission Rock went up to 40 as well. So, this gentleman says he's looked at all these pro formas, and what he doesn't tell you is that the profit rate for most of these developers is in the neighborhood of 20 to 30%. That's unheard of, okay? A normal profit rate for a developer is about 10%. We'd like to shift some of that profit over into the affordability column so that we can build more affordable, and that's the goal of Prop I.
So would I be able to get into one of your buildings, 30% of my income?
I can't really tell you because we haven't developed the plan yet, but the plan is going to be for affordability across a wide range, including the deeply affordable.
Well, I have a
Your turn.
certificate, so I was just wondering if that worked.
So I would say two things. One, if you want to pass a proposition to have 50% affordable housing, do that. This doesn't do that. He's saying we should stop building any housing in the Mission for 2 years and then figure out what to do. People are getting displaced right now. My friends are getting displaced right now, and I don't have time to wait. But the second thing I want to say about that is that the profit rate he's talking about is because folks like him make it so risky to invest in San Francisco that international capital won't invest here unless those rates are that high. I'd suck, and honestly true. I talk to investors lots of times. If it was between 15, 20%, like why would I do that if I can put it into a startup? Plus, if you want to take their money, let's take it and use it to fund affordable housing. Let's not stop construction.
Over here.
So, I just want to reflect back really briefly. I mean, it sounds like this whole opposition sounds just as ideological as the opposition you have, in the sense that you're asking us to believe that going the exact same path we've already gone is going to produce different results. The market rate development across the city has, along with the job trends that you mentioned, has completely railroaded people out of the city. And it's very brief, but you actually have the whole thing opposite. There is now an economic moat around the city. Prop I will make a small dent, but a very important dent, by offering one district in the city that has been so severely hurt by that enough time to develop these plans. If you put market rate housing in the Mission, we're on the Carson Belt. So I just want to reflect back. This is a very ideological, neoliberal attack that has no basis in current reality.
If you found a question in there you're welcome.
I have.
He called me a neoliberal, so I feel like I have right to that.
No, we just delineated a system.
Okay.
You can go. Go.
One of our principal opponents is a new group started by a woman named Sonia Trout.
I'm here.
Called, where?
She's here.
Oh, hey, Sonia, how are you doing? Called San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation, AKA SF BARF. Okay, the BARF line as I see it is build baby build, and it's a to me it is very reminiscent of the Republican line drill baby drill. How's that doing for us? There is definitely an ideological battle going on in San Francisco for the political soul of San Francisco. And the newcomers are largely libertarian. They are largely believe in market forces above all else, and that's really what they want to see in San Francisco. They want to transform a traditionally progressive city, into a more of a neoliberal model that suits them. And so I think that really is kind of what's underlying a lot of what's happening here.
Can I respond to that?
No.
Now you're the audience. So
You can.
Sure. So I would say two things. One is that if you're going to talk about pure ideology, you should look up to the person who said more numbers tonight. We actually had more evidence today. I talked about Chicago. I talked about Austin. I talked about what's happening in the Mission. And what we saw, what happened in the Mission is that there was a 0.026% increase in market rate housing in 2014. It's such a small number, it's a rounding error in an increase in housing. But rents went up by 20%. And when we saw that places do build that housing, the rents go down. I mean, we specifically had Ted Egan, who's a liberal economist from UC Berkeley, who, by the way, he's agreed with by Paul Krugman, liberal economist, Bradford DeLong, liberal economist, Enrico Morietti, liberal economist. Progressive economists all agree that we need to build more market rate housing. Second thing I want to talk about here is this idea that person I'm a Republican or libertarian. Tell that to the cop who tear gassed me when I marched for Ferguson in Oakland. Tell that to people, illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, because that's called illegal, just yes. I march with for immigration reform. Like plenty of people in this movement are progressive and are liberal. Just because you disagree with us, attack our facts, attack our evidence. Don't attack my character and my religion.
I was concerned about the invisibility of preservation of housing. Because that also preserves, for instance, and control. It's a place money could be spent. I live in the downtown quadrant and I've lived with bulldozers day and night. And there's been a lot of destruction of housing, a lot of suspicious housing. But, I would love to see something that way.
I'm not sure if there's a question there, but I will tell you that most of the people that I know on the Prop I team are very supportive of Jane Kim's Eviction 2.0 protections, which just passed yesterday and the day before at City Hall. So.
Does that have a preservation element?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it makes it more difficult to evict people, especially for basically new landlords. Say again?
I was talking about the building, preserving the building.
Oh, actually preservation.
Right? Instead of building
Yeah.
new toxic buildings
Right.
run by low-income slumlords, right? Sorry. To preserve buildings that have been nice conversions like co-op houses.
Yeah. Well, I will say this about Prop I is that, I'm a carpenter, a contractor. When I come to a job site, I bring a whole toolkit, okay? And there's lots of tools. There's hammers, there's screwdrivers, pliers, et cetera, et cetera. Prop I is in effect a pair of pliers. It's not the entire toolbox. It is one specific, proposition to do one specific thing, which is to have a pause for a plan. So, we get accused of not doing this or not doing that or not doing the other thing. We're not trying to do everything. We're trying to pause so that we create a plan. Now, what you're talking about is probably elements of the plan that will be developed by 2017 when Prop I passes. So, you know, we're gonna invite everybody to the table, you know, at the hearings that, you know, that create this neighborhood plan. I mean, everybody. I mean, Barf, you're welcome, you know, everybody. And, you know, that way we're gonna hammer out something that really is a consensus plan for the entire neighborhood.
But it's another point,
Okay,
non-enforcement,
gonna
because there were lots of.
respond to that.
And then
No, go first.
I want to ask, are you willing to wait until 2017 to have your home?
I'm sorry?
Are you willing to wait until 2017 for a potential chance of maybe having your home fixed?
Excuse me, my own fix.
Sorry? You're trying to preserving affordable housing, right? What he's saying is that you should wait until 2017 when they come up with a plan, and then maybe your
Well,
home.
no, I was discussing the topic, it's a non-enforcement, there are a whole lot of things where they're not supposed to be demolishing, but in fact, they are demolishing, so kind of bad.
Right. Are you referring
So
to,
there's a continuation in this whole thing.
gotcha, I thought you were referring to like preserving and fixing current existing
Well,
housing?
if you're gonna develop housing, you want to move the full range.
Right.
Completely ignoring demolition.
Okay.
I'll just say that the number one source of funding for preservation of affordable housing is also fees from building multi housing. So if his plan passes, all that money goes away.
Against the wall back there? Against the wall.
I was displaced from the mission many years ago because I had an moving eviction. And one of the things that occurred to me at the time was if the person who bought my house had another house to buy because there was a new construction built, they could have bought that brand new house instead of buying a house I lived in and kicking me out. So does Prop I help make sure that people aren't going to be further displaced because new people who want to move into the neighborhood don't buy a house and kick them out?
Another thing that might have helped you would be to have had some controls on OMIs. So, you know, that's basically a red herring question and again, it goes to, you know, the idea that Prop I should do everything. Prop I doesn't do everything. It's a pause for a plan. It's really a pretty simple initiative. It's a pause of 18 months, you know, with an additional 12 months if the Board of Supervisors okays it. We're not looking for the additional 12 months. We need to get this done quickly. I agree with my opponent here that, you know, there's some definite urgency. And, you know, it's a pause for a 50% affordable plan. So I'm not sure what your question is.
Let me ask this, that
Okay.
all of the time and energy that you put into Prop I and put into road plan.
You know what? One of the things that, you know, is really frankly kind of annoying about these kind of debates is that everybody wants to rewrite your initiative for you. Okay? We wrote an initiative that we think is in the best interest of the mission. It's gotten a tremendous amount of support. We are past the deadline to rewrite new initiatives. If you want to write one, go ahead. You know, the deadline is next June 10th. Write another initiative, you know? Okay.
Can I respond to this question?
Yes.
So I would say you're absolutely right. If you allowed somebody else to build a house in the mission, that person wouldn't have moved in to take your unit. They would have taken that new one, and you would have been able to stay there. I've to so many friends of mine. I'm afraid.